What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how not to wire up your ARB fridge. So a while ago I got this guy, which is the ARB fridge slash freezer, 63 quart, so it's slightly bigger, for roughly about $1,000 and I wanted to use it when we go off on trails, so that way we'd have cold drinks, food, blah blah blah, whatever, you know. And when I put it in, everything was fine, and it came with two cables. You've got one that looks like a cigarette lighter and the other one that's just a regular house plug. So obviously I was going to do the cigarette lighter because there's I don't have an inverter in the car. I read somewhere on forums that a lot of people, you know, wired up to the battery, whatever, blah blah blah. So what I did was I did wire it up to the battery, but I also used the cigarette lighter on the side of the Landcruiser. And I wired that up so that way I can plug it in and unplug it at any time. So after using it for about a half a year, it felt like it was okay. It was cold, but it wasn't as cold as I thought it'd be or as they advertised it. So I decided to dig a little bit deeper. Turns out the way that I had it wired, which was to the fuse box besides the left side of the kick panel right by the driver's feet, was incorrect. The gauge of the wire was incorrect, the connections weren't as good, all that. So I saw a wiring kit from ARB specifically for this fridge, and you know, online it just looked like wires to a battery to a cigarette lighter, and then you plug the cigarette lighter in. So in my mind I'm thinking, how much better could it be, because you're still using this little cigarette lighter. But I dug a little bit deeper, and turns out it's not a cigarette lighter. So I did get this kit, which is from ARB, roughly about $40 online. I'll have a link in the description down below, so make sure you check it out. In this kit, you've got a couple things. You've got the cigarette lighter looking thing, and also the wiring, of course. And you'll notice right off the bat, the wiring is pretty thick. This is a 10 gauge wire all the way through, so it's a lot thicker than the one that I have in the car currently. And the most important part is this little cigarette lighter thing. It actually is not a cigarette lighter. If you take it out, it actually has little prongs for where obviously the 10 gauge wire goes into, but when you pop open this little cap, it's not a cigarette lighter. You can't plug this in. And after doing a little bit more research, which I should have done in the first place, turns out the cigarette lighter unscrews and pulls apart. And there are your two little prongs. So these guys go together like this, I think. And that's how it works. And that's how you can avoid voltage drops and keep your fridge running at optimal temperature. Because what happens is, if you're using the cigarette lighter piece, it'll run the compressor for a little bit, then it'll shut off because it'll notice a decrease in voltage. And it's not because your battery's running low on battery, it's just because going through the little thin wire, going through the cigarette lighter, it just it drops the voltage so much where the fridge will still be on. It'll still display everything, the fan will still spin, but the compressor will shut off, so it won't get as cold. So that's why this might be a good idea. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this guy and see if it makes any difference. Now that I moved the fridge out of the way, you can see this was where I had the cigarette lighter plugged in. So this guy, I actually took off all these panels, and when I installed it, I took off all these panels and had a wire run specifically all the way down to the front, right into the little fuse box underneath the kick panel on the driver's foot. Now what that did was, these guys from the factory, they turn off when the key is out, but I didn't want that because, you know, you want the fridge to continuously run. So I hardwired it to a constant, and that gave it power all the time. However, obviously the wire wasn't thick enough, and plus you've got a little bottleneck, if you would say, of the cigarette lighter right here. So what I'm going to do is probably put the other one somewhere along these lines. I'm going to keep this one because this guy will be good for charging a phone, using it for other stuff. But I want the other one installed either here or maybe even on this panel. I'm not sure yet, wherever is convenient. So let me pop off these panels right here and see where we're gonna put that guy. So since I'm gonna be running the cables directly from the terminals all the way to the back, these pieces, plastic, other plastic, probably this guy, will need to come off so I can run the wires all the way into the back. And these guys, just kind of hit a pry tool and lift it up. Okay, it was kind of difficult to do with one hand, but as you can see, there's no screws or anything. There's just 3 of these little plastic pop rivets, and they just pop off. So put your little pry tool in, pry it up a little bit, fingers in, and try to pull it evenly from both sides. You should be okay. As you can see, the back is the same thing, but there's only 2. This one actually got stuck left in there. It's on the back of this guy. It's supposed to slide in there. So what I'll do is I'll take this guy back out, slide it back in here. So when I go back to pop it in, it'll be real easy. Next step is to take this panel off, which is a pretty big panel. It has this little cup holder in here and the subwoofers back here. So what you'll need to do, it kind of just pops off, you know, normally, but before you do that, you have to take off these guys right here, which is the seat belt, and the plastic cover just comes off, and underneath there, I believe, let's see here, yeah, plastic cover just comes off underneath there. This guy's either a 14 or a 17, I forget, but there's one here and then one for the 3rd row also. You need to take those guys out. Now that we've got the seat belts loose, there shouldn't be anything else holding this panel on, so you just gotta be careful and slowly take it out. Oh, there's a plug back here where I think it's for the cigarette lighter. There we go. And this piece is loose. Okay, after you remove the paneling on this side, it's one big gigantic piece. You can see all the bits behind it, the subwoofer, the jack, the tools, they're all right here. And how I'm going to run the wire is probably along where the stock one ran. It's going to be back here, all the way underneath the subwoofer. You can see the stock harness, just tuck it in there, and then all the way down, all the way forward through the battery. Now, as a comparison, I want you guys to see what I had on here before, and if you had ever hooked up to your factory cigarette lighter, what the wire consisted of. So for comparison, I wanted you guys to see what I had it hooked up to before, and if you've ever hooked it up to the factory cigarette lighter, this is what you're looking at. So this is the plug for the cigarette lighter. As you can see, you know, this is the factory lines. It's basically for your phone charger at best. Then I have it teed, I cut the factory positive off, hooked it up to this wire right here, which is a, you know, slightly bigger gauge. This one runs all the way to the back of the fuse box, which is fine. Now, I want to compare these two with the ARB wire. As you can see, this is the wire that I had in there. This is the ARB wire. This is 10 gauge. I don't know what this is. I think this is a 16, maybe a 14, 16 at most. But then it also goes down to this guy, which is the factory wiring, which is probably like an 18 gauge wire. It's pathetic. This is why my fridge wasn't getting cold. So like I said earlier, I'm still gonna leave this and these wires here just so I have a constant power source in the form of a cigarette lighter back here. but I'm going to run a separate plug for the fridge itself. But right now I kind of place this piece back just so I can figure out where there's space for this guy, because what I'm probably going to do is flush mount it against this plastic piece, and I want it somewhere in the back right here just so I can unplug it fairly easy if I need to. And it looks like, you know, there's like funny things back here. There's this box that gets in the way or whatever. As far as space goes, I think down here, which is this factory cigarette lighter, down here is going to be best, because back here, first of all, there's nothing back here, and then secondly, it's empty. So you've got the box right here, which you've got this much space, and then down here it's kind of just empty. So this would probably be the best area for me to put the DC socket for the fridge. So far, I've ran the wire through the engine bay. Now these are the two crimp little ring things that you can attach to the battery. They already came like this, so we're good to go. Fuse, inline fuse right here, very nice. So I have it run all the way down there to the side where it's kind of hidden. Underneath this mounting bracket, I believe, I don't know what this is for, some smog stuff. Underneath here, back there, and then I don't know if you can see that, but right around there is where I had it slit the rubber grommet open for other stuff like my lights, my CB radio and all that, so I just put it through right there. This is underneath the kick panel on the driver's side. You can see this is the big wire, this big one. It just comes through exactly where the stock harness comes through, and I'm gonna route it behind this panel right here, which is this guy. You can see this is the wire. Eventually it's gonna go all the way to the back. I ended up having to take out this panel as well, which covers the driver's side front seat belt. Same thing as before, you have to remove the 14mm bolt that holds the seat belt in place down here. And then once that's removed, you can just pop these out carefully. And on the back, you can see they're the same little like push-in pop thingies that Toyota uses everywhere on their plastics. So now with everything out of the way, we can peel the carpet back a little bit. And as you can see, these are the wires that I had prior. And this is gonna be for the fridge. So we can neatly tuck these guys in right here and run it all the way down to the back. Back here, you can see the wire comes in along the harness. It's right here, this one right here. Zip tied it for right now, tucked it underneath where the subwoofer is. Exactly, just follow the factory harness. And then after that, it goes down behind the bracket for the factory jack. And then you have the wire right here. I try to tuck it in through here and then have it maybe come out this hole in the bottom, but there seems to be nothing that there's no holes right there for me to push the wire through. Either I'm not looking hard enough or I'm just getting kind of lazy, but I think this should be okay. So next is find a perfect location for the cigarette lighter looking thing, this guy, and then drilling out the panel. So I have the panel temporarily put back in here to measure where I'm going to put this guy, and on the back there's actually two little holes. There's one right here and one right here. This one I think is a little bit too low. This one might be perfect. And basically it doesn't go all the way through, but this is just extra insurance that that'll fit. So what I'll do is I'll hold this guy, kind of guess where it's at, and then mark it from the back, and we'll start drilling. For this plug, how I'm going to mount it is I'm going to take it out of this little thing that ARB came with, and I'm just going to have it flush mounted to the panel. So I've already marked out where I want to drill, cut a hole in the panel, and basically it coincides with this backspace right here. And I don't think it'll actually get to this, but you know, just as a safety precaution, I don't want to have to drill a second hole in the panel for no reason. So according to the instructions that ARB gives us, we need a 1 3/16 hole saw, which I do not have, So what I'm going to do is just drill a hole and then use a Dremel to cut, you know, kind of a circle out right there. So after the drill, I use the Dremel and cut out this semicircle. So now we'll see if this guy fits in there. If not, maybe a little bit bigger. Yep, definitely too small. A little bit more. Ta-da! There we go. Obviously it's going to be the other way around, but it's going to fit. So now I have it pushed in through the right direction. On the back you can see it looks like this. I had to cut this guy a little bit, but just use a pair of scissors, it's not that bad. And then you gotta make sure you put the locking nut back on there. So that way it locks it in place and you're good to go. Ta-da! Now we need to cut this wire to length. As you can see, there is a lot of wire here. And according to the ARB instructions, the shorter the wire, obviously the better, but make sure you leave yourself enough slack. So this is where the little plug is, where I drilled the hole for. So my wire should be right around that length. It gave me these funny little clips here. We'll use those in a little bit. So I think I'm going to leave myself a little slack just in case I mess up. But should be right around here. I'm not really sure how to use these guys. I know they're 90 degrees. According to ARB, you're supposed to crimp the wire into these and then solder, so I guess either way. So I failed miserably with the little crimps that ARB supplied, the little 90-degree ones. So these are pretty cool if I got them to work. So I went to Home Depot and picked up these guys. These are for 10 gauge to 12 gauge wires. They should fit. Now, since I have the extra space behind the panel, which should go through right here, I'll be able to use the straight ones no problem. Pretty tight. ARB recommends soldering these two, but since these are insulated, I don't want to cut off the insulation because it's really nice. And I think they're crimped really good, so should be okay. Let's try it out and see how it goes. So real quick, I wanted to show you guys on the back of this plug, there is a positive and a negative terminal. So make sure you hook that up right. Okay, so here is the finished product. As you can see, I've already hooked up the positive and the negative terminal. The wires, you can barely see them, but they run along the side of the car into that rubber boot. After that, it comes out underneath the kick panel right here, runs all along here underneath the carpet. You can see the panel has already been put back on. Same thing with the passenger side, all underneath the carpet where it's nice and safe. Then we've got it running underneath the panel right here. In the back, all the seat belts and the panels have been replaced. It looks completely stock, except for this guy. That is the new plug for the ARB fridge, which is now flush mounted to the body panel. Plenty of space back behind this panel, because remember where we drilled the hole, there was a hole in the frame. So everything seemed to fit really well. Let's give it a shot and see if it works. Let's give it a shot. It's really nice actually. You can screw this in and it tightens around the housing too. That way you know you have a secure connection. Then, ta-da! You can hear the compressor kick on right away along with the fan. And as a bonus, I can still charge my phone even when the key is out, because remember, this one I originally hardwired directly to the battery for the fridge itself. So now it'll probably be for charging phones, GoPros, whatever. So there you have it. That's how you use the ARB wiring kit to hook up your ARB fridge. For this weekend, I'm gonna be putting this guy to the ultimate test. We're gonna go off-roading somewhere, and I'm gonna put some ice cream in here and see how cold it stays. Hopefully, this video helped you out in one way or another. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.